without even really watching or focusing on what's going on.
Well, that's the thing. It's like people are so fixated on the negative sometimes that, you know, the producers are probably just saying to themselves, at least they're talking about us. Right? Like, I think people need to focus on the art and the beauty of and the hard work we put into these dances. It's no joke. It's around the clock, 7 days a week, from the wardrobe team to the creative. I mean, like, I don't think anyone gets it, and yet we're focusing on the just the stuff that's not important.
I agree. Do you miss Tom Bergeron at times, though?
I love Tom. I mean, Tom and I go way back. Tom knew me during my TMZ days. Like, Tom's my dance dad for life. But that doesn't mean that I miss Tom. So let's replace Tyra with, no, I didn't say that. I am just a great friend of his and vice versa. And yes, he's missed. Absolutely. So was Conrad. And look, he's back. That's
Yes.
our showrunner, by the way.
Right. No, well, I mean, you seem to understand. Like, I know you've talked about this on your podcast too. Like, you mentioned this, right? Like, the media does get it wrong sometimes,
Most times.
most of the time. And that's why.
Yes.
So, I mean, is that part of, like Burke in the Game? Like, to me, look, there's a lot of podcasts out there that are, that are run or started by people in the public eye like yourself. But from listening to your podcast, you really are, to me, putting it all out there. And I mean that in like a good way, right? Like,
Yeah.
you are very open about really everything.
Everything.
Celebrity, your like mental health, like, just so I think that's
Listen, I think a lot of
commendable.
people say, "Are you a little bit? Do you hide keep anything to yourself?" Look, I don't think what I'm saying is personal, you guys. Like, I really don't. I think what I'm saying, it may be uncomfortable to some people, but it's important conversations. Whether that be somebody going through a divorce, whether that just be talking about our feelings and being vulnerable. Why is that shamed upon? I don't know. Listen to Brene Brown. She'll tell you after all her research. Like, it's not easy to do, but there are stuff that I don't, there's a lot of things in my life that I don't mention that to me are personal. But when it comes to stuff that I know that I'm not alone in feeling or doing or reacting to, then to me it's my duty, right? It's the reason why I was given this platform.
Why do you think in 2022, like, people are still like, shocked to want to talk about mental health and mental health struggles? I mean, it's
No, I get
2022.
it. It's heavy for some people. I've been grateful that my mom, ever since I, went through a little bit of childhood trauma, that she put me into therapy at a young age. So to me, I'm a huge advocate, but that's just me. Everyone was raised differently. And I think because of the pandemic and because of really there may be more downs than ups for some people, maybe this is the last thing they want to face. And some people in their whole lifetime may not even come to this realization or curious of wanting to know more about like their awareness of themselves, and so look, people that want to hear it can hear it, and people that don't have to. Please unfollow, but the nasty comments is what kills me sometimes.
Do you still go down that road of, like, I've kind of stopped reading all my comments more or
Yeah.
less, but are you still in it? Like, because I mean, let's face it, I don't know how our society has gotten here. There's just a prone, you could fly in on a unicorn with rainbows coming out of your ass, but you're still gonna,
Yes. You're
people
still
are
gonna get
just,
critiqued. Someone's
yeah,
gonna hold up a paddle, 1 through 10.
yeah.
Yeah, I so I'm all or nothing, as I said. So I either don't and I take the app off my phone completely, or I do every single one of them. And currently, I do every single one of them. But I'm not necessarily fixating as I used to on the one negative, because I love pressing delete and I love blocking and I love turning them into the whatever TikTok police and say how much of a bully this person is.
Absolutely. Where do you think we are in society? Like, I know you've also been very open about like your own struggles, like, throughout your career and childhood about like body dysmorphia. I grew
Mm.
up overweight, so I actually can totally relate to that. Where are you with that? And like, do you think things like, I mean, I look at like the Kardashians with like all different types of bodies and like what Kim is doing with Skims and even like TV, like a Ryan Murphy or like, Shonda Rhimes, like we are hiring people now of different body types. And like, do you think we've come far in the public eye in Hollywood? Or are we like, let's not, David, slow down. Let's not give it too much credit.
I think there's a lot more room to grow in general with anybody. Like anybody, right? Like I think it is going to be a collective process, but it's collective, as I said, it's not individual. But obviously, the more we can have these uncomfortable conversations, the better. But I do believe we've taken a step back as well with the whole Roe v. Wade. It's interesting because you're like, I've lived everywhere in the world from England, I lived in Europe, I've lived even in different parts of the US, but you would think that America is the land of the free, and yet the judging though that comes behind it is not, doesn't feel free sometimes.
Yes. And based on all this, like I imagine, I mean, and you say you're shy, like you wouldn't think that you would be ending up on a show, like it's got to be so
Dancing half
intensified.
naked.
Yeah, and with all these people watching and just based on the world. So that has to have been somewhat of a like adjustment. I mean, you've been at it for a long time, but
It gets, for me, dancing has been my way of communicating. My mom thought I was deaf actually when I was a little girl. She took me to a hearing specialist because I didn't talk until really late. And the doctor was like, no, she's fine. It's just that I have two different languages being spoken at home, but then also the trauma and the PTSD. I just developed in that sense a lot later. And it's been always easier for me to speak with my body and use body language instead of trying to put the feelings into words, which has been it's challenging, and I'm in two different therapy. I have two different therapists. I've got my somatic therapist, which is easier for me to get me out of my head, is to focus on like the pain I hold in my body. And then I've got my cognitive therapist, and for the past 10 years. And it's interesting because for me, this is my authentic self without talking, right? Like it's like whatever I express on the dance floor, it is real. I don't rehearse. I don't rehearse facial expressions. I don't rehearse anything other than however I'm feeling at that very second is how I'm going to perform, and that has been very therapeutic for me.
what about, you've been very open on your Burke in the Game podcast also about, I mean, you need to live under a rock if you don't know that, you're newly single and, you're recently divorced and it was just recently finalized.
Yeah.
So, I mean, listen, I'm single, but I come from a family of a ton of divorce. So like, I mean, how are you feeling now?
Every day is every hour, every few hours. It's a different feeling. It's not really over because we have this pending dog situation, which is just so cruel. Like I could actually, I mean, every time I think about it, I was talking to my agent earlier today, and we haven't talked in a few months. And she goes, oh, wait, is that really happening? And I was just,